Hey everyone, hope you're well. I'm just having a little sit down on the beach and I wanted to have a little sort of political chat. So if you don't want to hear me get political, just scroll on to another video. But the recent elections, Reform absolutely swept the floor and took over everywhere. It was a very successful election for the Reform Party. And I kind of just wanted to touch on it. It seems to have been a bit of a turbulent takeover for the Reform Party. The other week someone left and then rejoined at the weekend. Today, locally for me over in Cliftonville, someone's left due to sensitive circumstances, whatever that means. So they've left the Reform whip. So obviously it's a tough time taking over Kent County Council. We've got to give them a chance. And the recent election was a big sweep for Reform. Now, with the election, it was very much a case of voting for the individual with this recent election. And two of the Reform candidates very kindly took the time out to come and talk to me, which was nice of them, and answer my environmental questions, which was really nice. And with Reform having such a landslide victory, we really need to be paying attention to the party's bottom line, how the party may whip the local councillors into toe the party line because they had such a massive landslide victory. So we really need to be paying attention. And I spent quite a bit of time sort of researching the local candidates' policies with the upcoming election. You know, the vote is the most powerful tool in your toolbox for change. If you're not getting political and you're not voting, then to be honest, shame on you. We really, it's our civic duty to vote and pay attention. And this video, as long as it may be, is kind of to touch on my concerns of the Reform Party. And this is not a dig at the Reform Party. This is me touching on my environmental concerns of the party, given they had such a landslide victory and given they're having a bit of a turbulent takeover at the moment. So my main concerns with them was kind of off the back of Brexit. We lost a lot of environmental protections with that. Of course, that was UKIP, not Reform, but it's basically the same thing. And there was a bit I want to talk about with the effects of Brexit in a minute. And of course, the other thing is looking after our farmers, because we want farmers to farm forever and we want to protect our farmland and we want farming to work for farmers so they're not tempted to sell it to greedy developers. So my kind of concerns when it comes to that is looking after our farmers and our sewage as well and our environmental protection. So one of the biggest concerns for me with the Reform Party is Reform's proposal to stop Natural England taking any actions to protect threatened nature sites. This would give free rein to those who want to pollute or exploit our precious natural spaces. So that's a very big concern, that Reform want to stop Natural England taking any actions to protect threatened sites. That is something us that care about the environment should be really paying attention to. And then on to Brexit, how it's affected our farmers. It's affected certain farming sectors more than others. So as you can imagine, trade barriers. So off the back of leaving Europe, increased trade barriers and tariffs and red tape and custom checks, they've made it more difficult and more costly for UK farmers to export their goods. The loss of EU subsidies, the common agricultural policy, that's affected them, and labour shortages. And of course, this really affects when it comes to harvest time. Restrictions on the free movement of labour seasonal workers from the EU has led to labour shortages and difficulties in harvesting crops, because a lot of people come overseas to help with the harvest. And I work on a few farms, and there's a lot of Polish working on these farms as well. So those kind of labour shortages are having a bit of an effect, because that's affecting sort of different sectors of the farming industry, not all of them. So increased costs and red tape, new regulations and paperwork have increased the costs and the competitiveness of it all. Competition from cheaper imports. New trade deals have opened the UK market to cheaper agricultural imports from non-EU countries, potentially undercutting domestic producers. So something to be very concerned about. And another thing is Reform plans to eliminate climate-related farming subsidies. And I'd argue this would undermine efforts to promote sustainable farming. sustainable farming practices and will negatively impact the long-term health of the agricultural sector. You know, we really need to start focusing on the changes in the climate and the biodiversity breakdown, because that really does affect farming. 60% of recent food price increases are due to failed crops due to extreme weather. So that's kind of a real concern of mine. And then I'm down on the beach, and sewage has got a lot worse since Brexit. Now, I'm not necessarily blaming Brexit for that, but the Office of Environmental Protection hasn't been able to sort of do its thing. The divergence from the EU water laws and loss of EU oversight and environmental enforcement has just sort of made it a lot easier for the law to be broken and spills to happen, and a weakening of environmental regulations. So also with trade deals and stuff, there's been a disruption of water treatment chemical supplies. In 2023, sewage dumping in Dover and Deal increased by a shocking 370%. So sewage dumping is on the up. So they're kind of some of my fundamental concerns about the current reform whip over all our local candidates. And as I say, this is not a dig. In this video, I haven't made anything up. These are all things that concern me. And if you wanted to listen to my concerns, as you should, then thanks for listening. So yeah, bit of a long political one, but thanks for sticking with me on that. And I hope maybe you've learned something. Let's get wild.